Music by Skippy. Luke M. Harbur records as Music by Skippy. We started the song Bye Bye from My Dying Wish. And after graduating from Ithaca College in 2018, Luke moved near home to Kansas City, Missouri, becoming a featured performer for musicians, corporate and nonprofit events and performance groups. The Kansas native mixes beatboxing, singing, beat production, rapping, and keyboard playing to entertain all age audiences in clubs, theaters, festivals, and also with the Kansas City performance collective Quixotic. The passion in his music has roots in his experience of receiving a life-saving liver transplant at the age of 11 months old. Music by Skippy will officially release his debut album, My Dying Wish, with a live album release show next week on April 7th and 8th, hosted by Quixotic at 1616 Broadway Boulevard in their Black Box Theater. You can get more information at www.musicbyskippy.com. Luke M. Harbur, thank you so much for being with us today on Wednesday Midday Medley.
Well, but of course, it's so nice to finally be here. I'm just thrilled that I get to be in your space and share this day with you.
Our pleasure. We got to hang out with D. Rashawn Gilmore in the last segment. Oh my God! So it kind of worked out that we had Bye Bye queued up to play first today.
Yes.
And I wanted to play that song in particular because it represents, just how personal and autobiographical this new record that you just put out really is. It's about you and your life, and you're telling us a lot of deep stories about yourself, aren't you?
Yeah. I wanted to attempt with this first album. It's called My Dying Wish because I want people to know if I were to pass away for any reason the next day, people would know exactly who I am through these records. And my hope is that through that vulnerability, people can kind of turn inward to themselves and maybe reflect on some of the social issues and themes that are prevalent within the songs themselves.
I love it. It's really, I think when I talked to you on the phone a few weeks back, I told you that in some ways the album, because it mixes so many different genres of music, it demonstrates your beatboxing, your singing, your piano playing, and it sort of reminded me of a musical story of your life, like a musical theater production about your life.
Yeah, I've had that feedback from a few people, and one, that's incredibly humbling, and two, I've had about 6 or 7 people be like, you've got this Lin-Manuel Miranda In the Heights type thing going on. I mean, through your story and through your own delivery. I'm like, that's very nice to say. I am no Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it's good to know that it's been resonating with people.
To come out in a song, to put it in a record, you were talking to me on the phone about you wanted to make sure that I knew that you were coming out in a place of privilege, and you found a community that supported you, and not everybody has that, right?
Yes. I think when it comes to being part of the LGBTQ plus community, there's so much intersectionality, just like our lovely guest spoke about. Any kind of nuanced issue, you have to take religion, race, and politics into play. And I know that I was very lucky when I came out that I had loving and caring parents, loving and caring grandparents, loving and caring brother. And then I always love talking about and crediting Missy B's, the LGBTQ plus bar here in Kansas City, because that was a place where I found a community that I really related to and understood that I could be safe in myself outside of just being with my friend group. It was people that I really related to and could banter with too.
And that's been a regular place for you to perform on a regular basis and try out all kinds of material on an audience, right?
Yes, and I love that. It is the most welcoming and loving audience, and that makes a big difference for trying out new material, I'm learning. Because then you get to be a little more bold, right? Like as a performer and as a musician, there's this balance of what do I show for what market I'm performing to. And I know for me, when I perform Bye Bye, obviously the crowd is LGBTQ plus, so it's such an amazing, vulnerable conversation that I get to have with people during the performance, but then also afterward. It's really nice.
When people from the audience come up to you and thank you, thank you for telling that story, that gives me the courage. Because when you perform in a LGBTQIA bar like Missy B's, there's the wide spectrum, and then that's the kind of place where all all different kinds of LGBT people go to, right?
Yes.
The whole spectrum of it all.
The entire spectrum. And I know someone who identifies as non-binary and bisexual started crying when they were talking to me after a performance a couple weeks ago. They were like, I just can't tell you what that means to bring out that conversation because it's not being talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially, you know, every single letter within the spectrum is a minority, right? But
Right.
I know as a bisexual man, it's more tabooed to be a bisexual man than woman in some ways. And then I think for me to find a community that also has bisexual men, there's a lot of conversation that can then happen from that song, but more importantly, our own anecdotes and our own connections that we make with each other.
I had the privilege of speaking before a civil rights history class at UMKC for the last 3 or 4 years, and I always start the speaking thing by saying, who in the room is LGBTQIA? Which
love it.
Professors can't do that. That would be against their rules of their job. But as a guest, I can do that. And a few people hold their hands up, but not everybody, because it's, a mixed room. People don't always know. But then when I'm done, people come up and speak to me. And a couple of years ago, there was like a line of 8 people, and all of them identified as bisexual to me, which I found really great, because when I came out in the 80s, people that came out as bisexual were not only ostracized by straight people, but they were also ostracized by gay people too.
Yes.
It wasn't popular to be bisexual within the gay community,
right?
Strangely enough.
Oh, yeah, but that's very real, though. That's very, very true. I think there's this, and some people look at me. I've been with lots of women in my life, and I've dated some men. I haven't been with a lot of men, so I'm looked at like, Luke, are you like, or what are you really? And I'm like, I know what I like and what I don't like.
Right.
I don't know how else to put it.
Right.
And you don't have to prove anything when you identify as part of the community. It's
Thank
about
you.
your comfort.
Yes.
Really.
And I hope people understand the spectrum of sexuality from straight to gay is wide open. And we're identifying,
so wide.
Right, we're starting to identify and put words into identifying things that we didn't have available to us maybe 10, 15 years ago.
Exactly.
Like non-binary, for example, which makes perfect sense to me when I think about it. You're having an album release show next week, April 7th and 8th, hosted by Quixotic at 1616 Broadway in their Black Box Theater. We talked about Mika Thomas giving you the green light to do this, right?
Yes. I'm still stupefied by that. I am in full disbelief that it's actually happening, but I'm so ready and excited.
That's another home for you. Besides, we talk about Missy B's. Quixotic has also been kind of a secure home base for you, also, haven't they?
Yes, and I always have to give credit to Calvin Arsenia for welcoming me into that space. He had me be a featured beatboxer for a performance back in 2019. That eventually led to me being a guest on Terra Luna, which is outdoors, and that happens at the Overland Park Arboretum, this amazing immersive world. I've gotten to be just a stand-up performer there, which was amazing. And then I've gotten to do lots of performances of Sensatia Cabaret, which just finished its run at Crown Center. And that is always an amazing experience. My favorite moment from that show is I got to beatbox in tandem with a tap dancer. Wow. And it was crazy. We did a cover of Bad Guy by Billie Eilish, and I did all the backing track while he tapped out the vocals.
Wow.
They are such a cool, innovative company, and I'm just so grateful that they're actually helping me bring my vision even more to life with my music.
We're so lucky in Kansas City to have Quixotic as part of our community.
It's astounding.
It is a beautiful, multi-layered performance of so many ways. You were raised in Overland Park, Kansas. You went to Olathe East High School, but you left Olathe East to go to school in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to a performing arts school where you studied acting and theater.
I sure did.
And got all your chops there.
Yes.
As they say.
Yes.
Because even if you don't work in theater, I think it's beneficial to study theater and to have that experience, because it's one of the most collaborative art forms.
Yes.
And you have to learn how to. The show must go on, right?
Oh, whether you like it or not.
Right. You have to put that show up and make it happen, and that teaches you so many lessons, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and you realize any story or vision you have immediately becomes bigger than you when you have a cast and a crew that you work with. When I'm up on that stage next week, I have 10 to 11 different people helping me make this show happen. That's what's become so beautiful about it. It's now bigger than just the songs and me trying to tell a story. It's paying people well for their time and their talents. It's knowing that as a collective vision, we can make something beautiful together to let people escape for a while.
The album that you're putting out, My Dying Wish, contains so many, like we mentioned, different genres of music, but it also demonstrates your beatboxing techniques.
Yes.
And I thought maybe we could play a track that sort of really shows that. One of the tracks called I Forget. When did you start beatboxing? How did you start doing this?
Okay.
Were you just playing around with the microphone one day, or what happened?
I love it. No, it's such a good question. So when I was 10 years old, I had the chance to go to New York City, honestly, just for a vacation and a trip. And my cousin, Chris Harbur, at the time, was living in New York City, working as an actor. And he was doing it in a hotel hallway just to himself. And I got so amused by it. I was like, what is that? He's like, oh, Luke, it's called beatboxing. I'm like, well, how do you do it? And he gave me the very basic, like, boots and cats thing that a lot of people know, which is learning the cymbal, the snare, and the bass drum. Eventually, I practiced that just on my own to kind of channel my big energy that I have. It helped me focus a lot. And I spit on myself for about 2 or 3 months. And then eventually, a year later, the sounds became very solid. And then I started watching different beatboxing videos on YouTube and imitating what I hear.
Rozelle, people. All the,
yes, Rozelle, Beardy Man, Dougie Fresh. Those are some of the OGs that I really got into. And now there's so much new age beatboxing. And that's the way I've been able to do what I do today and what you're going to hear with I Forget. I'm able to make all kinds of crazy sounds.
Well, let's play this. This is from Musicbyskippy, the new album My Dying Wish. The track is called I Forget. Musicbyskippy from My Dying Wish, I Forget. And Luke, you were telling us that was all one take.
That is all one take. Everything you are hearing is like just me somewhat freestyling, but having that core lyricism that you were hearing, that I forget, forget to sleep, drink thing. Right. It works perfectly. You, okay, so in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, yes,
this beautiful place, I'm sure. North Carolina is an incredibly beautiful state. That just has the ocean and the woods and the Victorian houses and everything. You're at this performing arts school, and you kind of decided maybe theater isn't your thing, right?
Yeah, I knew that I deeply fell in love with performance, and I understood that it meant a lot to me, made me feel really alive and engaged, but I also knew there was a part of me that had something missing. Like, I knew that also communications was something that really interested me. I remember when I was a senior at that school, we had an assignment for a history class to write a letter to the editor of our local paper. And I remember submitting mine, and it actually did get published, and it did really, really well online. And that professor was like, you should look into journalism. You're actually a very good writer, and you kind of know how to commentate on current events and piecemeal complex ideas to something simple. So that's what kind of inspired me to, pursue what I did in college, which was getting a journalism degree at Ithaca College.
At Ithaca College, and eventually you ended up being a production assistant at the Kansas City Star.
I sure did.
And helped Chris Aguirre do the Star sessions that they used to do back in the day when Chris used to work for the Star, and Tim Finn, and we used to have a music editor at the Star that covered things for us. But all these people are doing it in different ways now. But that must have been fun for you to work with Chris on that Star Sessions.
Loved it. I was such a nerd because I knew exactly who he was when he walked in the door. So I almost had to fan myself. And I was fanboying over him. But Chris is one of the most genuine, complimentary people to the Kansas City artist community.
He is.
It amazes me.
He's indicative of the music community. It's just this big open heart. And
open heart.
We love you, brother. And through knowing Chris, you're playing Boulevardia, aren't you, on June 18th?
Yes, I've been given a 30-minute slot on Saturday, June 18th. I believe that's the date that it is.
Yeah.
And I'll be on it from 7 to 7:30. Pretty excited.
That's great. That's really cool. We were talking on the phone a few weeks back about you were talking to me about the importance of collaboration in mid-sized markets like Kansas City and how others can benefit from these collaborations. You want to talk about what you mean by that?
Yeah, of course. So I think for me, when it comes to collaborating in Kansas City, just because we have 500,000 people and not like millions of people in a New York or an LA or Chicago, it's important to intersperse your different markets of people with the right people. I don't think I fully realized that until I started doing collaborative shows and festivals myself. One of my favorite organizations in Kansas City is No Divide KC. Mm-hmm. They stand big time for LGBTQ plus voices and arts in the greater Kansas City area. When I came to that festival and performed at that festival, it was my first one I've ever done, collaboration became very key to me because all these different people from this small place created, an audience of 50 to 100 people. And those 50 to 100 people learned about 9 to 10 new artists and different cultures and backgrounds. And so that to me was a turning point of, there's literally no way you can build an audience and make a sustainable career in a place like this if you think you can be a lone wolf. It doesn't make any sense. And I know that's something that I'm learning about as an artist and an entertainer, is I know my strengths are the singing and rapping and beatboxing and all that. I'm not formally trained on any instrument. And I always want to compliment people like Kadesh Flow. He's a fabulous example of someone who plays the trombone in like a formal ensemble, but then also has his own thing. So he's also like a prime example of what it means to really, quote unquote, make it in a market like right here. I've always admired someone like him.
And both of you talking about it as a business and as a marketplace, because he's also known as the MBA, the rapper with an MBA.
Oh, yeah. He's smart, man. He's so smart.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking with Luke M. Harbur, who records as Music by Skippy. That's the AKA of Luke, Music by Skippy. And you can go to musicbyskippy.com to learn more about all of this. It's a great website, which has all kinds of information. And Luke is going to be doing a performance of his basically, it's a live album release show of My Dying Wish coming up on April 7th and 8th, hosted by Quixotic at 1616 Boulevard, Kansas City, Missouri, in the Black Box Theater. As we mentioned, musicbyskippy.com is a great place to go for that. And we have just a couple minutes left, but we're going to play a song from the album that talks about your life-saving liver transplant at the age of 11.
Yes.
This is like a really important part of that record, isn't it?
Yeah. At the age of 11 months old, I had a liver transplant, and I just can't... I created this song ultimately as the last song on the album because I kept screwing up what it really meant to me to have every single thing be a second chance at life. And so the song's name is called Aaron Drake, who is my donor's name. And I really look forward to sharing it because I hope that it speaks for itself.
There's so much more we want to talk about, but we're going to have you back on the radio show in a few weeks, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I have to look at my book here at the exact date, but back on May 11th. You're going to be back on the show on May 11th. Because you have all kinds of future shows. You have stuff.
Yes.
You have some stuff coming up with the film, the Stray Cat film.
Yes, I've got a little something with Stray Cat that I'll be releasing in about a day or two.
And other projects that are kind of in the you're not announcing them yet, but we'll talk about those on May 11th.
I can't wait.
Luke Harbur, thank you so much for being with us today on Wednesday, Medema. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and I look forward to having you back on the show to continue the conversation. And just please know you're always welcome on the show. Okay?
You're the sweetest. Thank you, Mark.
Music by Skippy plays a My Dying Wish live album release show May 7th and 8th next week, hosted by Quixotic at their headquarters, 1616 Broadway Boulevard, in their Black Box Theater. And Music by Skippy will also be playing Boulevardia on Saturday, June 18th. You can get more information at musicbyskippy.com because Skippy performs all over Kansas City, including, as we mentioned, Missy B's and with other different groups. This is the track from the album about the liver transplant, and it sort of starts out with you sort of introducing it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Mark. It's just been a joy and a pleasure.